Maya Muta, and welcome to another episode of My Filipino Venture. I'm Mike, your American tour guide. Today we're going to talk about why relationships fail, or what's the hardest part about the long distance relationship between an American and a Filipino. From my experience, now I might be wrong, this is just what I've come across of what could potentially be a big pitfall. But first, I'm going to sneak this in here because it's the only way I can get you guys to watch them. Remember a couple videos ago I showed you my hydroponics unit? Well, and look how big these suckers are getting. This is the butternut or crunchy lettuce. I think it's called butter crunch. But I showed you the roots before. There was like 2 or 3 roots coming out of each plant. Look at these things now. Look at those roots. Nice white, healthy roots, and no soil, just water. So look at these. I've got a picture of when I first put them in the hydroponics. I think it was January 24th. Let's take a look at that picture. And this is what they are now. And this is a couple weeks later. Pretty awesome. That's some broccoli microgreens, and that's some sunflowers I harvested. And then what I do is I harvest them and then I put them back up and let some of the seeds I haven't germinated go. So I'll have another harvest. Okay, so let's get on to the conversation. Okay, and now we are back to the topic. And what I think is the largest pitfall of Filipino and Americano relationships, or Filipino and any other relationships, or Americana and any other foreign relationships, and that's communication. Communication is a little tricky, and it takes a little bit of finesse and a little bit of learning on both sides to really come together. Now, I want to say right off the top that Yna and I are doing fantastic. We've never been happier. We're very excited about our K1, and if you're new to the channel, our first stage of the K1 has been approved, and it took us 5 months, and that's the I-129F form, and that took 5 months, and it was approved. It was approved a couple weeks ago, or maybe less than that, or 10 days ago or so. And all that means is it's approved to apply for a visa. Just because you get approved on that first stage, that just means now you can go apply for the K1 visa, and then there's more background checks, and there's more paperwork, and there's more ways things can go wrong after that. It's not a done deal. Now you can go ahead and approve it. But that first 5 months is the longest, from my understanding, the longest stage. So we still have some more hurdles to jump over, but we're getting close, and it's definitely really got us excited for the next process. But our communication has gotten much better over the last 2 years. But I would have to say, in the beginning, and it was never a point where I was going to just call it off, but there was, because Filipinos are so eager to please. It's part of their culture. It's just the way they are. They want you to be happy. They want things to go smooth, and it's not their fault or your fault about this communication pitfall. Now, just because she speaks or she knows English does not mean that she knows all the subtleties and nuances of our language, and that goes for us too with their language and culture too. So, language and the culture, they kind of go together. So it can be trying, and I have to say, I'm 54, she's 35. I'm a little bit more set in my ways. I've been divorced for 6 years, and I've been kind of just set in my ways, I would say. I live alone, and I like the things the way I like them, and you become a little bit less flexible as you get older. You're a little bit more jaded. You've seen it all. You've been through so much, and you know that the world is not all rainbows and puppy dog tails. And you know that at least I don't believe that there's in real true love that falls from the sky, and there's only one person for you and you're meant to be together. Relationships are a lot of work. There's thousands of people that you can be compatible, that you could have relationships with. You just have to work at it. So I said maybe I'm just a little old and grumpy. So when we'll be communicating, and there would be, even with you text a friend and they might get upset at you because they took your text the wrong way. Well, imagine that amplified because of a cultural or language difference. So it can really lead to some arguments or some miscommunication, which can lead to some hurt feelings. And so these are the things where the pitfalls that you're going to have to overcome. And I have learned in the 2 years that Yna and I have been together is to definitely slow down, be patient, and work through these communications. And I'll admit, and I'm not proud of it, but I'll admit at the beginning of the relationship, I would get a little snippy sometimes when I'd be talking and then she would not be following, and I'll say, hey, I said that 3 texts ago. I explained all that to you. Now, why are you asking me this why when I already told you this? It's not her fault. She didn't 100% comprehend what I was saying. School bus. Anything shiny. I'm such a flibberty-gibbet, easily distracted. So for an example, I remember when we were first filling out the K-1 visa, and I'd ask her for information. We were doing this over Facebook Messenger. And I'd say, okay, now question 6A, they want to know this. And then she'd come back a little bit later and say, okay, here's the address, or here's whatever. And I'd be thinking, well, that's not what they were asking. I said, no. Why would you tell me this? They want this. And then she'd come back with something different. I said, no, I don't think you understand. And I would get impatient. I would lose my cool sometimes, and I would get a little angry, or a little, at least bitchy. I'd get a little snippy. Like I said, I'm not proud of it, but I've learned to become a lot more patient. And then she would do a little bit the same with me, where I would say something, what might be a saying or slang or something that 2 Americans talking would completely understand, she would not get. And sometimes she would take that the wrong way and think maybe that I was saying something bad to her, or saying something that she didn't understand, and she thought something else of it. And then she would start like questioning me, like, what did you mean by this? And I said, oh, this means this. No, what did you mean by this? And then that would lead into some raw feelings between us. It's like, no, I didn't mean that at all. And she's like, well, I don't understand what you were trying to say. Is this what you were trying to say? And I'd say, anyway, so there is that. It's a subtle dance. It's really a subtle dance that you have to do with each other, learning each other's cultural difference in languages. Now, she's getting much better with her English, and I'm getting much better with her comprehension of English. I guess the best way to put it. Now, just because you speak another language does not mean that you'll know the subtle differences and the little shortcuts or slang or the nuances of each other's language, and the same with them. Now, I'm going to bring culture into this also, because that plays into the communication. Now, there's definitely a big cultural difference between us, even though that they are kind of Americanized, because they were a territory of ours in a sense for many years. We pretty much ran the show in the Philippines. So, but still, they've got their own culture there. And one of their cultures is shame. And I think Ned over at My Filipino Dreams, he's got there's a word for it. And every time I ask Yna about it, she has no idea what I'm talking about. Morcopio or Morpokio, something. Ned knows what the word is. I don't know what it is. And it is basically, it's their self-worth or their self-id or ego. Never call out or dress a Filipino down in public. Even if they're lying to you, straight to your face. Never in a group of people call them out and say, hey, you're lying, it's not true, and this is why, because you have just shamed them. And you just do not publicly shame a Filipino. It's part of their culture. Now, in America, especially with dudes, bros, we love busting each other's balls. It's a rite of passage. It's it's if you can take it and dish it back out, it shows that you're tough, and we bond over that. And mostly with men, but we do it to women too. And women, American women can give it just as good as a guy and take it. So women can do this also too. Busting balls. This is the only way I can, best way I can put it. And we usually do that because we're friends. We know that we can push the limit right to the point where you don't want to get too personal. But when you bust balls and then you get it back. But in the Philippines, no. So I've done that a few times with Yna, just goofing around. And I've learned early on, no, they don't understand that. They take that as a personal shame. So, and it's not anything, one culture is better. It's just we have different cultures. So there's the language and the culture is something that you're going to have to assimilate. You're going to assimilate their culture. She's going to assimilate yours, but you have to walk that fine line in between there. And it works. It does work. Yna and I are proof of that. You can find that happy medium and be happy and have a good relationship. But just watch that. Be prepared for a little bit of tampo in the beginning, which is, if you don't know what that is, there's probably a lot of videos. That's the silent treatment. And they're really good at giving you the silent treatment. I told you at the beginning, let's have no drama and let's definitely not have any tampo, because it's just a waste of time. Let's not do any of that. And she's been very good about that. She is sometimes she can't help it. It's part of her culture. And then I'll say, hey, you're giving me tampo. And she goes, yeah, okay, yeah, a little bit. All right. So let's not do that. So anyway, so like I said, we have found, I think, a happy medium. But just be prepared for a cultural and a communication barrier that you'll have to slowly break down. And don't do what I do at the beginning and have a short temper with that. I'm glad that we worked through that beginning part, because now we're really doing well. But I would say that's the biggest downfall, second only to just the distance. If you can get by the distance, doesn't mean you're done. Now you have the language and the communication barrier to get through. So I hope that will help some people with their future relationships. Tell me in the comments below about your experience with cultural differences and communication problems, especially at the beginning of your relationship. And if you've been together for a long time, does it get better, or do you still maybe not fight so much, but to have disagreements over communication? I'd really like to see that in the comments. So let me know what you think about that. Subscribe, like, share, do all that great stuff. And you know what? And if you have subscribed, hit that little bell, and that will let you know when a new video comes up. So be kind, take your time with your partner, stay classy. See you soon.